You know, I was curious the other day because I wanted to look through stuff about Dragon Sight, because about specifically like the macro and stuff. I wanted to see through if there was shit I could find because I didn't invent this, but like I added a little touch to it that I didn't look up. I didn't look up which macro to have, and I got curious because I saw nobody talking about this. Nobody mentioned this one macro for Dragon Sight that when I started using it, it made it very like just trivial. Like I never had, well, unless I changed this myself and I forget that I changed it, I never have to think about it. So I have used 3 macros. For the longest time, I used the Dragon Sight mouse over macro. Basically what it does is, if you don't know, when you have the party here and you hover with your mouse over a player and you use Dragon Sight, it will then target the player you have your mouse over. I used this for the longest time, up until the second right here. So I used it for quite a while. And it became annoying because there's a lot of thinking you have to do. Well, it's not a lot, but it's extra thinking you have to do on top of everything else. And what I mean by that is whenever you have your 2-minute come up and you need to give it to somebody, you need to always look at the party list and make sure you are hovering over the right person, because a little too up or a little too down, you're gonna either like you're gonna target a healer or you're gonna target a tank, and you don't want to do that. I mean, it's depending on how your party list is formatted, but the main thing is that you have to look over on the party list to make sure you're targeting the right person. So I got tired of that, and I started to use the target macro. I used the target macro. This is what I used without this. Okay, this one is the key that I added to this macro. At first, it was just target. So what does it do? You will target the player you're gonna give it to. In this case, the person who is number 4 on your party list. You're gonna target them, and then you're gonna give them the buff. However, and this was much better than the mouse over macro, in my opinion. It was much better, but there was always this annoying thing where, because it targets off of the boss, you have to target back the boss again. And we all know how targeting is in this game. You can have mess ups. You can have mess ups where, especially on wall bosses, wall bosses has a weird fucking thing where even though it's like a giant on the screen, if you're not looking up at it enough, you won't target it. So for example, let's say this pillar is like the wall boss, right? And I'm just here. If I have my camera like this, there's a very high likely chance I won't target the boss because it's technically not in my point of view. So I would always have to go make sure, look, I'm looking like at the boss. So again, it's another thing you have to think about. So I put in this last piece that's completely solved the problem for me for all of eternity. And it's the /targetlastenemy. Okay? So what that looks like, is like this. I'll just act as if I'll just make it target myself. So basically, you do your opener, and this is how it'll look like. And it ends up with you back at the target. That's simple, okay? You will never have a problem again if you use this macro. You'll never have a problem again. Granted, that's if you have it targeted at the right person, okay? If you have it targeted on the right person, you'll never have a problem with this again. You don't have to think about targeting back to the boss. You don't have to think about who you're giving it to because you already know who you're giving it to, and it just kind of does it by itself. And it's just simple, okay? Now, it removes a lot of issues with it, but that still doesn't remove the jankiness of the ability itself. Every once in a blue moon, you're gonna press this button like this, and somehow it is still not gonna proc. it's still not going to activate. It will happen once every blue moon. It's going to happen. You cannot get rid of that. You can't get rid of that. It's going to happen eventually. But at least with this macro, it removes a lot of the targeting bullshit and all that stuff. There is another macro that I recently found that serves the same purpose, exactly the same functionality, but just a slight different flavor, okay? It's spoon-fed to you with a different flavor. And that is the focus target. So what this does is basically as follows. It's gonna use the focus target to give it to the person. So in this case, we'll say that Chocobo is our party melee, other second party melee. So I focus target him, and it will do the exact same thing as the other macro, just in a slightly different way. So there's the focus target, and then boom, there he has it. And it's that simple. This is perfectly like a preference. It's all preference. Whichever these one and two. In my opinion, this one still is good. It's just for me, I don't like that I have to have another thing on my screen, cluttering my screen. I don't like that. Yeah, I guess you could make it smaller, but still, it's still something else on your screen. And here's another reason why I will still use the other one. I'll still use this one, and it's because of the sound this makes. You hear that targeting sound? That has become like a huge link to me to know how much I've been pressing the button, okay? Because if for example, like, because the ability is so janky to proc, you want to spam this shit. So if I'm not hearing like this spam going on, I feel like something's going wrong, okay? The other one, you don't get to hear that, so you have to kind of be aware that it's proccing, but it's a very small thing. It's a very small thing that makes me want to still use the other one. So the other thing is that your focus target can fall off somehow. You have to be aware that this is on, okay? That it's on. It can somehow fall off, either if you press the button again or some weird bullshit goes off. And the thing about this is that if you don't have a focus target, it will not proc at all. So if I just do that, oh, that was the wrong one. Oh, that was the wrong one. But if you use the focus target method, if you don't have a focus target on, it will not activate whatsoever. So you yourself will not even get the buff. Okay, at least with this one, even if you did mess up like I did earlier, how apparently I had it targeting myself, you at least will still get the buff for yourself, at the very least. Yeah, you can use either or. I could, in my opinion, I haven't found a single problem with like either of these. There could be something that I have not encountered, but I think these are great. Both of these are great. Whichever one you want to use, you could use. It's just a matter of preference. Which one do you want? Do you don't like the clicking noise? Do you do like the clicking noise? Do you not want another thing on your screen? Etc, etc. It comes down to you, however you want to use it. Now, I would recommend that you always have the Dragon Sight macro mouse over always available on hand in case. Why do I say this? I say this because sometimes your other melee will die right when the 2-minute comes up, and you can have the Dragon Sight mouse over on hand in case if you ever need to give it to somebody, because it will still be good to give it to somebody who's alive in the 2-minute, because at least they'll be doing damage. Yeah, a small thing. If you always want to have this on. Yeah, that's it. Just a little tip for macros on Dragon Sight to make it ever so slightly less unbearable. This is a garbage skill that that we all have to deal with, and however we can make it more bearable is a gain. At least until 7.0, if it gets removed or something. Or not, maybe it'll stay and we have to deal with this fucking shit for all eternity. But yeah, that's it.